a lot of people assume that the fixer bot is going to buy up all of the, or not all of it, but it's going to buy up the liquidity in, let's say, Uniswap and the other dexes, right? It's going to put 1,000 times more pulse than what was there. When the fixer bot, after the fork happens and the fixer bot, gets to those pools, it's going to basically look at the balance and say, oh, okay, you've got, you had 100 ETH in there. Okay, times that by 1,000. That's the number that we need to put in, right? It's going to generate the pulse, right? Because we're on PulseChain now to do that, and yeah, and then it's just going to put it in, and you're going to end up with 100,000 pulse or whatever. I guess is that the answer? Yeah. And then whatever it buys up, PRC20 wise, it buys up, right? It just all it really knows is, hey, I'm going to dump 1,000 times more of the PulseChain token into the liquidity pool, and whatever I buy up, I buy up. Now, what that means is the liquidity pool for Uniswap is going to have like 0.01% of what it used to have for liquidity. It's going to be very small, right? And the ratio is going to be extremely high, obviously, but there's just not going to be much there. But then the fixer bot's going to go and take the PRC20 tokens that it grabbed from there and put it into the PulseX DEX. So most people are assuming that it's going to put the remaining 99.99% of the liquidity into the PulseX DEX, because Richard has said that the PulseX DEX is going to be the most liquid DEX on PulseChain. And so they just assume it's going to put everything in. If I were Richard, I would not do that. I would put in 1%, right? You're still 100 times more liquid than Uniswap, which was, the most liquid DEX on Ethereum. But now you're limiting your exposure on PulseChain to the PRC20 tokens, right? So when you look at the data sets of people who hold value on PulseChain, there's two data sets, right? There's two sets of people, two groups of people that have value. There's people who have sacrificed, whether that's for PulseChain or for PulseX, right? And then there's the liquidity pools, right? Supply doesn't matter of any of the tokens. It just matters what is in the liquidity pools paired with Ethereum before the fork, right? And then paired with PulseChain after the fork. That's what's going to matter. And so when you look at a pre-fork, we sacrificed, let's say 750 million to PulseChain, and I'm going to call it $1.25 billion to PulseX, right? Not including the OA's contributions. So you have $2 billion of sacrifice for PulseChain or PulseX in one corner. At the opposite end, you've got the liquidity pools. And last I checked, which was a week or a month ago, I think it was, but I think the numbers change all the time. V2 with Ethereum had, I want to say, $1.25 billion in liquidity, and V3 had $1.5 billion in liquidity. So that puts it at $2.75 billion in liquidity in the other side, right? And so there's actually more value in the liquidity pools. So instantly, when I'm looking at that just from the high level, I'm saying, okay, well, if I put in $1, then it's instantly worth less than 50 cents now, right? Because whoever's going to trade in these liquidity pools can take that value from me, more or less. I mean, there's some mind games to be played there, right? Because if you still think that you got in for 3 zeros and a 1, right? $1 for 10,000 tokens, and you're not dealt less than that, then that's great. But you also have to realize that everyone who's got who sells out the liquidity pools, right, and sells their token for Pulse, let's say, if they want to extract the value and go to Ethereum or whatever other network there is, then you have to contend with them doing that first. And so a way to limit the liquidity, right, have a thinner liquidity so that we get a lower value on that right away, is to just not deploy the entire PRC20 tokens in the PulseX DEX, right? If you only put 1% in or 5% in or whatever it is, then whatever costs you $1 before relative to everything else, kind of, and yada yada, you only get 1% of it or 10% of it, whatever it is. And I think that's a much better way to go. I just I have trouble figuring out where do we go from there to what Richard wanted with pairing all the PRC20 tokens and ERC20 tokens. I mean, maybe that's still part of the plan, and we just wait for the first few weeks or the first month for the price to stabilize, and then you pair up those ERC20 and PRC20 tokens. Yeah, because otherwise I just see basically people getting a free copy. They're basically putting up, let's say you got Hex. Well, you got the Hex for free on PulseChain. Well, Hex is maybe not a good idea. Let's go with Link, right? So let's say Link on PulseChain is free, and you're holding Link on Ethereum. Well, the Link on Ethereum has a certain value, right? Whatever that value is, let's call it $30. I don't know. But on PulseChain, you've basically got monopoly money, right? And so people who are going to lock in liquidity, they're putting monopoly money up against $30, right? I'll take the $30 versus the $30 dollars of monopoly money any day. And so people who put that up early before those ratios kind of get rebalanced are going to lose their US dollars, and they're going to end up with a bunch of monopoly money, right? Now, depending on if that monopoly money turns out to be real value is going to be seen later, right? So if we're talking about Hex, then we're definitely going to turn that monopoly money into real US dollars, right? And that's not going to be so much of an issue. But for some of these other coins that we don't really know what their future value is on PulseChain, I wouldn't want to make that bet. But then at the same time, you have this issue of rising boats. The rising water rise all boats at the same time, right? And so as you're pumping in value into PulseChain, right, you're giving Pulse more value. But when you give Pulse more value, that gives the PRC20s more value, right? And so you have to wait until everyone shakes out of their positions on the PRC20s, really before you want to thicken up those liquidity pools, in my opinion. Yeah. So that's basically it. That's how I see it.